Today we're going to be working on a 2010. It's a Ford Transit van. It's a four-cylinder. It's the 2.0. It's leaking oil, which is really not a hard problem to correct. Left unattended is, of course, is going to cause multiple problems for you. In this particular case, the spark plug tubes are filling up with oil and causing a misfire in the engine. So let me show you quite simply how to correct that problem. It's really not that hard. So let me grab some tools, and I'm sure you'll be able to take care of it. I'll show you what to do. Okay, this is under the hood. What I was telling you about that oil leak up inside here. You can see where it's leaking here, and more so it's leaking down inside the spark plug tubes. The way we're going to be removing it is we're going to unplug each one of the coils, and we're going to pull the wiring harness off to the side here. And the way you unplug it is you basically just push down in this little tab here, and you pull it right off like that, each one of them. And we're just going to pull these off to the sides, like that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab an 8mm socket, and we're going to take out each one of these coil packs. We're going to take it and remove it from the vehicle. Then we're going to remove all of these bolts to hold the valve cover down. And last we're going to do is we're going to come around on this side over here again, remove all the bolts. And then we're going to remove this bracket right here. There's a little bolt right down in here. It's probably about a 12 or 13mm. We're going to loosen that. Just move this to the side so we can get the cover up and off. So let's grab some tools and let's get started. Okay, now that we have all the coils out, these just pull right out of here after you take that bolt out. We're going to keep all those nuts that we took out because we're going to need to put them back in. Then we just have to remove this piece right inside here. There's a little clip down on the bottom. Once you pull this rubber back, there's a little clip that you push in and you pull it off. So let me do that, and we'll get that out of there. These pieces here I popped off here. Just put a pliers underneath there and I popped them right off. Same thing in the front here. So let's take that out, and we're going to proceed with it. This rubber piece up here will expose the plug that you have on here. Now we just push this into the screwdriver and it pops right off. And we're just going to move that to the side right now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to unplug this right in the back here. You push that little tab down and you just pull it. And it comes right off. And then we're going to relocate that bracket in the back there just so we can get the valve cover out. Just take that nut out. It's either 12 or 13mm. And then once you break it loose, you can just take that out like that too. And the reason you're taking it out, I think I told us to you before, is so that when you take this valve cover off, you can lift it up and out of there because we have this bracket in the way right here. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the bolts to hold the valve cover down, and we're going to lift that cover up and out of there. Okay, and we're just going to pry this other piece off right over here. That's sitting on top of one of the bolts. Just going to need that with a pair of needle-nose pliers. We can pry right up out of the way, and that gives us a little bit more room. And we're going to take out one of those bolts right there. Those are all look like 8mm also, so you can break them all loose, and we're going to take those out. There's one underneath the master cylinder. It's a little bit rough to get to. We'll get...
Hey, Jim.
Oh, how you doing, all right?
All right, let me see what I got for you. Happy New Year, Jimmy.
Happy New Year, too.
Not too much, that's it.
Great. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you.
I'll see you.
Okay, we'll take all those screws all the way out, and we'll get this cover off the car. Let me get all these screws out, we'll come right back. Okay. Now we have all the bolts loose, but this valve cover is going to come up and it's going to hit into these lines here. So instead of twisting it and trying to get it past there, we're just going to move these out of the way. We're just going to pop this clip off right here. And then down underneath here, there's a little clip right here. If you go underneath the bottom and you push the clip up, it comes right off. And that way you can just relocate it out of the way so it doesn't interfere. This one we should be okay with. That's our fuel line. And then down in the back on the cover here, there's another little clip right here. And if you put your finger in the back, you'll feel a little tiny, I'll see if I can show it to you. A little tiny clip right here. You just lift that clip up and you just rock it and it comes right off of the valve cover like that. All right, so now we can just push that to the side just a little bit, move this harness back a little bit, and then we're going to pull this cover off and we'll get it out of there. So let me grab a tool and we'll get right back. Okay, then we just get in here with a pry bar or a screwdriver or whatever, and we just rock it just a little bit. Just keep a little bit upward pressure and we should be able to pull it right off. Just be careful, you don't want to break the valve cover. Okay. Just remember, nice and gentle. Alright. Make sure all the screws are out. At least something is holding this one in, so it's not totally out yet. Unplug the injectors. I am going to unplug the injectors to give me just a little bit more height. There's a little plug on it. You just push the plug in and you can pull it up, and it'll give me a little bit more room on the harness to be able to move it out of the way. So I can get that gasket, the valve cover out. And I can take it out. Nice and gentle, you don't want to break anything. Alright, and what happens is, underneath here, these gaskets right here start to leak. And when they start to leak oil down inside the dipstick tube, I'll show you what happens. Oil fills up inside the dipstick tubes right there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and we're going to clean this gasket off right here with a scraper, razor blade, whatever you have. We're going to clean off this one inside the valve cover here. I'm going to clean it off a little bit, and then we're going to place the new gasket back in there. So let me clean it up a little bit, we'll come right back. Okay, this is looking at the bottom of the valve cover now, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this gasket out, and the way you get in there is just get in there with a very thin screwdriver or a scribe, whatever you have, just so you can pry the gasket out of there. This has been in there for quite a while, so it's in there, stuck in there pretty good. So I'm going to take two hands, I'm going to pry this gasket out of there. We're going to pry this gasket out right here, here, and here, and we're going to reinstall the new one. So let me do that, and once I get that finished, we'll come right back. Okay, this is what the new gasket looks like that we're going to be reinstalling. And these are all the inserts too. So let me get these back in, and we'll come right back. Okay, now we have all the seals back in place where they belong. We're going to go over to the car, and we're going to put this back onto the vehicle now. Remember that you have to dry out that oil that's inside the spark plug tube area. You want to get that dried out. All right, one more thing you have to do too, that I want to point out. Wherever the head comes together with any kind of a, like this one here's a timing case cover, you have to put a bead of silicone here, as well as in the back right over here too, otherwise you could wind up with a little bit of seepage out from underneath it. In this particular car, those are the only two places we're going to put it, so we're going to put a little bead here and a little bead there, and then we're going to lay that cover back in there. All right, everything is cleaned up, nice and clean, so let's lay that cover back in there now. You're just going to put a little bead of silicone in there. Sometimes it's a little difficult to get your hand in there. Just put it on with a screwdriver. And now when you lay that cover back on, it'll seal it up really well. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. And now we'll lay that valve cover back in there, and we're going to bolt this job back up. Remember, put it back in the way you took it out. Lift up the harness, and you're going to come underneath here. And we're going to wipe all this down later, just so you know. Make sure your gasket doesn't slide out. Okay, just watch your gasket doesn't fall out of place, and you just do it nice and easily. And you pull it right into where it belongs. Down, just confirm that your gasket is still in place, and remember you have that silicone there, so it's going to be put it down, and that's where it stays. Okay, now just screw all those bolts in with your ratchet. Don't tighten them tight yet, just catch them all in there. You do them all until they're all caught, and then you snug them down a little bit each. You're just snugging them in, you're not tightening anything down all the way yet. now touching. Nothing's tight yet, but it's down as far as it can go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to tighten them up the rest of the way that we have everything caught now. I always use a 1/4 inch because you don't want to snap anything off. A 1/4 inch drive ratchet, that is. Everything snugged down fairly tight. We're going to go back over everything one more time, including the ones in the center. All right, now we're going to tighten the one up in the back there that we had a little bit of a difficulty getting to. That one's nice and tight. Now we're just going to go over them all one more time to make sure they're tight. Okay, now everything is nice and tight. Now what we're going to do is we're going to reattach all of those lines that we previously took out. When you push them back in, they usually just snap right in place. You'll hear it. It locks back in. Okay? Same thing on this tube in the back there. We just want to push that back on there, and you'll feel it lock right in. All right? And we're going to plug our injectors back on, and you'll hear them snap in place. Okay, all the injectors snapped back in. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to reattach our sensor right here. And you'll hear it snap right back in where it belongs. Right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to wipe down that whole valve cover, make sure it's nice and clean. Okay, reattach that clip that we previously took off that hold these lines together. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put that bolt in the back over there. Remember that was that 12mm bolt that was in the back, and that you're going to screw in by hand. Screw it in by hand as far as you can. And after you get it in and it doesn't go any further, then we're just going to snug it down with the ratchet. Nice and tight. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to reattach these harnesses that we previously disconnected, so that way they're back where they came off. And it just slide right on. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to reattach that sensor, pull the rubber piece back, and push it down, and you'll hear it snap, and that's it. And then just push your rubber boot back over the top. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to lay each one of the coil packs back in. Just wipe them all off, make sure they're clean, so that way you get some of the grease off of them, or the oil I should say. All right. Back in. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get those 8mm bolts that hold the coils in place, and we're going to attach them. Screw them in by hand. Once you've got them all screwed in by hand, then you can bring a ratchet over, a 1/4-inch ratchet again. They don't have to be tight, just snug. Alright, so now we have all our coils back in. Last thing we're going to do is plug each one of the coil packs back on. You'll hear it snap in. That way you know you're locked in place. And the last one we're going to put on. Everything's locked in. Alright, then before we start the job up, we're just going to go over everything mentally, just to make sure that you have everything reconnected. We'll just go over one time here. Coil packs are in, locked in place. Each one of them has their harness on. Each one of these bolts to hold the coils in place is tight. Our bracket down here is tightened on. Our wire looms are back where they belong. Our clip right here is locked in place and snapped in. It's like this, the clip in the back, but it's down in the back there, locked in place. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure we have our connector here to hold this tube out of the way. The injectors are all plugged back in, all 4 of them. The wire looms are plugged back in where they came from. This sensor is plugged in here, and this is plugged in down here. This rubber boot is back in position. And that's it. We're all set. All right, so now we're just going to wipe it down one more time, and we're going to get this job out the door, and we're going to move on to the next one. All right, thanks for watching. Good luck. You need any help or whatever, just drop me a line. Be more than happy to talk to you about anything. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.